riding down Highway 61. Sides of the roads all lined with fields, nothing but sunset in the windshield. Feel it as soon as I ride into town. This is where I go to slow down. Miles and miles of soybeans and corn. I'm in the place where the blues was born. About a mile from the big muddy river, place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away from being out in the sun all day. No matter where in the world I go, I'll always find home on the banks of that oxbow.
Hey guys, Todd Huckabee here at the Grizzly Jig Spring Show 2023.
That's awesome. Brad Chapel at the end.
We got Slab Nasty and Ginger Jesus.
Ginger G.
Y'all can do a little bit more introduction than Todd gave you there, but
That's what they told me.
that's what they told me.
I'm Russell Gates. I'm from Texas. I'm not the Ginger Jesus. I'm Slab Nasty. I'm pretty much a one-trick pony. I like to chase crappie in open water and pick them off timber.
Aye, all right.
I'm TJ Shands. I got on Grenada Lake and Beaver Lake in Arkansas. Pretty much the same, man. I like to chase them open water fish with a long pole and a short pole. So,
You know, today's topic is going to be, the basics of live scoping open water crappie. And, you see more and more tournaments definitely won this way. And I'm starting to see more and more people out on the lakes doing this. Mm-hmm. But we want to kind of get to the basics of what is actually going on out there. And I know Todd does it, I do it, these other two guys do it as well. So we'll just kind of take our turn and, go through some of the basic things that you're doing out there on the water to chase open water fish.
who will
Slab Nasty?
Woo. First thing I'm gonna do is find where they're at. Generally during the day, no matter how deep or shallow the water are, I'm gonna look for some roaming fish because we all know most of the time that's where your big fish gonna be. Say if I'm in 30 foot of water and I start seeing them suspended fish in 15 foot of water, I'm gonna keep looking, identifying the fish, and just chasing them down. I mean, it's a day-to-day basis for me from what I find. I don't know about TJ. I mean, I know he does it way more than I do.
It's a little more consistent in Mississippi than it is over there, I think. 9 times out of 10, our fish are roaming, and you're gonna find 10 to 1 roaming as you are on a stump. Now,
Why do you think that is?
I don't know. I check them all. Mm-hmm. If I know I'm coming to a stump field, I'm hoping that they're there because those fish are generally easier to catch. I mean, they're not ready to run. They're going to sit there and wait for a bait rather than an open water fish that you make one wrong move, he's gone.
Yeah.
So if I can find them on timber, which this time of year they tend to start finding that timber, and I think they use it as a current block.
Yeah.
Grenada's coming up fast. It's going to be coming up fast, and there's a lot of water running through there. So I think those stumps, they do allow those fish to get behind. Probably the same thing over there. Just a little bit of a current break for them. But
when I think of open water fish, and what I normally do is I'm going to probably side scan if I'm not familiar with an area. I'm going to look for some bait fish and some crappie on side scan. And then once I throw my trolling motor down, number one thing I'm going to do is face into the wind.
Yep.
Yes.
I think that's just something very basic to me.
Yep.
If there's any kind of wind myself, I'm going to face into the wind, and then I'm going to start taking my live scope, whether it's on a pole, trolling motor, and start sweeping it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Left and right. And we'll go down through the line here, but how far out do you have your range looking at?
I'm on 50 whenever
50?
I'm searching. I mean, this time of year with our fish being so shallow, you know, they'll be in 13, 14, 20 foot of water, but they're only a foot and a half deep. And that, I kind of go off of your side scanning comment, you know, a lot of times on Grenada, those fish are too shallow to side scan for them, and for the crappie. Now, if I can get around some bait, you know, your bait's going to show up on there pretty much every time. But those crappie, you know, you'll miss them. You'll drive right over them. But if you can find some bait on side scan, it's a good place to drop your live scope and start setting up into the wind.
Yeah. I put mine out when I'm searching for fish. I'm usually running 60 foot is what I'm looking at. And then when I find a fish, I get downwind of him, and then I start zooming in as I'm working up on the fish. Yes. Being downwind of that fish is the most critical thing because you're going straight instead of left to right. Boat control's huge. I generally start pitching to a fish when I get him at 20 foot. And some days they're more spooky, and you have to go after them quicker. But if my sweet spot's 15 foot. So I'm looking to get that fish dialed down to 20 foot. I'm looking out 20 foot on my screen. That I run the grid on mine, and that allows me. So when I'm at 20 foot, that's a 2x2 square. On the Garmin Livescope, I run a 12-22. I can size that crappie off of that grid, and as you know, we're looking for them
slabs.
Them
like
dimes,
nasty slabs.
Them nasty slabs.
Yeah.
I want one that fills that hole,
Right.
that 2 foot square, or basically. I mean, and they will fool you. I've caught fish that I would have bet money was a 2 pound fish, might be a pound and a quarter. I know we've all seen it. I think it's just the way the light hits them, but that's a good rule that I use. So yeah, I'm looking for that. I'm running at 60, searching when I get on a fish, because generally they're stationary where we're at. That's one of the keys that helps me identify a fish. A crappie is that he's stationary. A lot of your bass and carp and everything else are moving. And I'm looking for the size. He's going to be a bright glow out there, generally sitting still.
Right.
That's what I'm looking for at 60 foot.
Todd, what you running yours at tonight?
Well, I'm doing something completely different because I'm not fishing tournaments. I'm guiding.
Yeah, right.
And so on my lake at Eufaula, it's such a numbers lake that I don't need to shoot that far. 20 to 25, I'm good because there's 3 to 4 fish on the screen at all times. And we're just numbers fishing. So I'm not necessarily...
You crappie fish.
Huh?
I said you crappie fish.
Yeah, we're meat hunting.
Yeah.
We're looking for groceries, not for giants. So I don't shoot out as far. If I was going to some of those lakes in Oklahoma that are known for these giants, I'm going to range out a little bit.
Yeah.
But the reason why I'm ranging out isn't trying to cover more water. Our fish on our small lakes where all these trophy fish are coming from, so there's times that if you are ranged out 25 feet, you're never going to see one because you can't get any closer than 30 feet of him before he leaves because they are so shallow. It's kind of like what TJ was saying about Grenada. And I'll tell you another thing that I want to bring up before I forget is a lot of guys that go to Grenada, and I'm giving away one of y'all's secrets here, or if you're coming to Oklahoma or anywhere across the United States, if you're pursuing these big roaming open water fish that are real shallow, if your transducer's on your trolling motor and you have it set normal, you're not going to see them. You've got to click that transducer up.
It helps.
And nobody does that hardly at all. I mean, it just blows my mind. The general public out there does not think about that. But if it's a foot under the water and this fish is a foot under the water, you're not going to see him very well.
Along that same line, to me, is you're not going to see that splash as well.
Right.
Whenever you're dropping that bait down. So I always want to catch that bait as soon as it hits the water, so I can start adjusting, especially on a shallow fish.
And like he said, and y'all said, and for the people that don't know, that lets you know you've got it adjusted right. If you see, because with mine, I'm forward. I don't see my bait splash.
Yeah.
Because I probably see my bait at 2 foot.
Yeah.
Right.
Is when I first pick it up. So just a pointer for those guys that don't know what's right, what you're talking about. If you don't see it splashed, click it up
Yeah, that's right.
once.
Click
right.
it. Well, and we hadn't mentioned this, but I know there's a lot of questions on the 32 or the 34, and we'll name up what everybody has down through the line here.
I'm running a 32.
32?
I am too.
Yes, sir.
32?
Yep.
Todd?
Both.
Both. I have both. I played with both of them a lot, and I would think for open water, crappie, suspended, I think the 32 is way better in my mind.
I mean, the first time I ran the 34 was, I think, August or September of 2022, and it was on another guy's boat. He booked a trip, wanted it in his boat, and I
Right.
said, that's fine. I really wanted to see the 34 anyway. What I noticed is if those fish spooked and they cut left or right on either side of the boat, it was harder for me to stay on that fish and keep him on the screen with the 34 rather than my 32. I don't know if it is, but the 34 seemed tighter. The cone seemed a little bit tighter than the 32 for me, because I can feather my trolling motor, back and forth and keep him on the screen. If you feathered that 34, he'd fade out. That's just something I noticed. I don't know if that's how.
Can I ask what head unit you're running with it?
Yeah, I run a 1222 with mine.
Okay. So when I first got the 34 and switched it out was right before I went to Millwood last spring. And on my lake of Eufaula, which is muddy, it was way, way worse. So I took it off and I put the 32 back on because of what y'all are talking about.
Yeah.
Now, through talking to a bunch of guys that are swearing by it, that 34 is designed for a 16.
Yeah.
If you put the 34 with a 16, everybody that you talk to says that it's way better
Really?
than the 32 and the 12. But if you put the 34 on the 12,
I haven't heard that yet.
No, I haven't either.
They say that head unit, the processor isn't fast enough to interpret what that new transducer is sending to it.
What about, and along this subject line, I hear a lot about the double wire or the single wire 32. Anybody really familiar with those two differences?
So I've had both,
Yeah,
mainly because
you broke
the
something.
the first one I bought was on my previous boat.
Yeah.
It was a single wire. The guy bought my boat, wanted the whole setup, so I had to buy a new one. I got the double wire. I will say that the single wire was a hotter transducer. To me, it was clear. I was running a 9-inch Garmin with a single wire, and I had a brighter, hotter picture than I do at the 1222
No
with
wonder
the
you
double
need
wire.
glasses a while ago.
Yeah. Oh, that's why I got the bigger screen.
Yeah. I
They
got
make them fish bigger. Yeah.
I heard some talk about that this week, and I wasn't actually, I guess I didn't key in on that far enough yet. And
The research I found, and this, like I said, I haven't seen it
Yeah.
myself, was the single wire had bigger wires in it than the double wire does, allowing it to transmit easier with less draw.
I think another thing when we're talking about basics of using the Livescope to catch an open water fish is not having your unit set on auto range.
Yes.
And each one of us, and I'm setting mine typically if I'm looking for open water suspended fish, I got tongue tied there, but between 50 and 60.
Yeah.
Depending on how many fish is in there. If I can get down with 50 and be able to spot them with that, I will. But if I'm actually really looking, and I might even go to 70, but I want it fixed on that range out. I'm not going to let it go to auto. So auto function to me is probably useless
Yeah.
from A to Z.
Yeah,
What I've kinda-
it's kind of like back in the day having fish symbols turned on your
Yeah.
And beeping
2D.
noises.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like I don't need a depth alarm and fish symbols, and I don't want it to interpret anything for me.
Right.
Right.
Kind of going back to the basics, it's with the depth setting. For me, if I go and try to match my the bottom of the lake to the bottom of my screen and try to keep it always there, your fish size is changing.
Right.
Every time you change
Absolutely.
it changes, and you wouldn't believe how much it changes. I mean, you may think a 2.5 pound fish, you know, it looks like a 2.5, and it's a 12-inch fish after you get shallow. So when I set mine, and I know that I'm not going to be any deeper than 20 foot of water, mine goes on 20, and I'll leave it there until I get up to 10 foot. I mean, if I'm in 10 foot of water, I usually set mine on 13. 13 and 20 are my two settings, and I know what a keeper fish looks like on both of them.
It's say if you're fishing 6 foot of water, you're still gonna leave on 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
In shallow water, like he's talking about, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I usually keep it. I want it as shallow as good, but if you're fishing in 10 foot of water and you pull it up to 10 foot, it distorts it.
Yep.
You don't get a clear. And like you said, your size has changed. So I usually try to run mine on 20. Now, if I go into deep water, say 30, 40, or 50 foot,
Them Texas guys.
I'm just, and that's pretty much winter.
Yeah.
I will dial it down to where I've just got about 2 foot of bottom.
Yeah.
I will adjust that as I go because I want it as shallow as possible. Because the deeper you get, the harder it is to get on that fish.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like we've talked about it. When you're in 5 foot of water, I'm pitching to hit my cone. I'm basically shooting straight out of my transducer. When I'm in 30 foot of water, my transducer's on the left. I'm left-handed. I may be shooting 3, 4, 5 foot out to hit in that cone.
Right.
But it's falling back towards the trolling motor. But to hit it, people don't realize that the deeper you get, the farther that offset's going to be.
Yeah, that degree's kicking out.
That 8 degree, it's a multiplier. You know, it's the further you got to shoot. If you're right-handed, yours is probably on the right side. Vice versa, mine's on the left.
Yeah.
I haven't heard that before. I like that too.
Yeah.
And the other thing, for guys that are just getting started, get a 0 offset.
Yep.
I run the 8 because I'm cheap, and you know, it comes with it. I learned to fish with it.
Yeah.
A 0 would do that, but like you said, y'all aren't fishing deep,
No.
Right.
so you don't notice it. So I'm gonna say from 20 to 25 foot and shallower, it's not that. You will see it if you pay attention to it in 20, but not like you will once you get 30, 40.
What are you running your depth on, Todd?
For, like right now, it's February and March, when we're just chasing true roaming fish.
Yeah.
I only look at the bottom 8 feet, or the top 8 feet.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't care about seeing the bottom, but there again, I'm guiding,
Yeah.
and that's different. And the reason why is because my clients are constantly like, "What was that down there on bottom?" And I'm like, "Dude, I don't know. I'm not even like, don't even look down there. They're
didn't
not
see
going to
that."
be crappie." Yes. And it's kind of weird. They're trying to process everything on the screen.
Yeah.
And all I'm doing is looking at the top if I'm shooting all the way to the bottom. So now I don't even shoot all the way.
Yeah.
You're just looking where you've seen the crappie at. Actually, on
Yeah,
the
so
screen.
but most of our fish for the next 2.5 months on Eufaula are going to be between a foot and maybe 8 foot deep at the most.
Yeah.
And so even if I'm in the middle of the channel and it's 20 foot, I'm only going to be
Yeah.
shooting 8 foot deep
Yeah.
because it is just too much for clients to process. It's too much information.
And he brings up a good point. If I'm fishing timber, picking fish off of timber, say I'm fishing 40 foot of water, and I can find a pattern, fish suspended at 15 foot on the trees.
No need to look at that
back.
40.
I'm going to pull it back up to that 20 where
Yeah.
that's my comfort zone right
Yeah.
there, and I'm just going to look there.
Exactly.
That's right.
If I run out of fish, then I'll drop it down and go searching.
Yeah.
Because on my lake in the winter, spring, and then in the dead of summer, which summer's because of the thermocline, but this time of the year when they're suspended up, anything that's down below them is going to be catfish, it's going to be buffalo, it's going to be drum, carp,
Cascaboo.
all that stuff, and the clients just get so caught up in watching this bigger stuff down there that they're missing what they're supposed to be
The
targeting.
targets. Yeah. You know, mine. I'm real similar to these guys. I'm on 20 foot's about very rarely on Ross Barnett where I'm guiding at and fishing at. They're very rarely deeper than 20
Yeah.
feet. Occasionally this year they went down to about 22, but day in and day out, they're going to be about 12 to about 14. and I like 17 or 18 for really where I'm really comfortable at on my depth. Now, once we go shallower, I'm probably going to move up to my setting won't go any higher than probably 8 foot, even if I was in 6 foot of water.
Yeah.
It wouldn't go up to that 6 foot. I would still have some, I guess you would call it dead screen, but because I'm not used to seeing those images that size, so I start guessing myself like, what was that? Well, that could have been an actual crappie because I'm not used to seeing it every day.
But again, if you're on a lake and that's what you're used to seeing, fish that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about learning what the fish look like, the size of fish. Use your jig for a scale.
That's right.
On the crappie. If you may look out there and see a fish, I think that's a pretty good fish. You know, I'm taking a pound fish, pound and a half, whatever. If you drop your jig down there and he's the same size, it's not a pound fish.
Can't be.
Right.
So kind of talk about what y'all use as far as once you find those fish, what are you dropping on them? How are you dropping it? Are you casting? Are you pitching to them?
Mine really changes throughout the year. From now through 1st of April, we're going to be long poling, and we're going to try to do it as slow as possible. I mean, even creeping up on the fish. This time of year and through March, you know, there's 100 boats on the lake every day.
Yeah.
And the more boats those fish hear and see, the spookier they're going to get. So the quieter you can sneak up. I mean, you can fly if you want. But when I see that fish break into 50 foot, I'm on the brakes.
Yeah.
And then from 50 foot into 20 foot, I'm creeping.
Yeah.
And it's monotonous, and it takes a long time, and the guys with crappie brakes can run up there, you know, and slam on the brakes. But if you can't get close to him without the boat slap spooking him, it doesn't help you. So we're slow, and like I said, our fish are going to be our active fish are going to be a foot to 4 foot. And right now, from what I've seen the other day, anything deeper than 5 foot is not eating. They're hanging out, and I dropped minnows on their head. I dropped everything I had, and you're just not going to catch them right now. And once the water warms up, you will. But
what size jig heads? And we'll dig into you, and then we'll let Slab Nasty dig into his stuff too. But what is your basic setup?
So
for open water suspended fish,
with clients, I try to go heavier than what I would for myself.
Yeah.
You got a lot more control with heavy setup as far as getting your bait into the cone. If I'm hollering left and you've got a 16th ounce jig with nothing else, it takes forever, and that fish is going to be gone before you get it there. So I run a half ounce weight, and from that half ounce, I got about a 12-inch leader to a 1/4 ounce jig, and that allows me, whether they're a foot deep or 6 foot deep, you can move that bait around pretty quick.
So when you say leader, do you actually tie a leader?
It's the same line as the main line. The only thing I do whenever I go to tie my rig up is I'll cut about 12 inches off of my braid, 40-pound braid, and tie. I'll run my half ounce barrel sinker up the main line, tie it to a barrel swivel, and then tie that leader from the swivel to the jig. And there's no fluoro, no mono, nothing like that. Those fish down there are not gonna see any line. A lot of people can't believe, I'm using 40-pound braid, but
you can get pulled in with that if you need it to.
They don't care, man. Not there. Now, certain lakes you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But yep.
Gates?
I run 20-pound braid. I don't guide.
Yeah.
So, and the way I run, I generally boat control in the wind, and this is why I do this.
Hold it up.
I run a 1/4 ounce barrel swivel above my jig head. Whatever I'm running, this is the 1/8 ounce. I like to run a 1/4 ounce. Very, very, very seldom will you see me go to a 16th ounce or a smaller. I want to get that bait down there. I've always got that 1/4 ounce in there. Todd's been with me when we've been on Millwood. Dipping cypress trees in 3 or 4 foot of water. I don't need that weight, but I pull it up out of the way and just
Yeah.
and just dip with the jig head. But when I'm chasing fish, I've always got that, and I can adjust that up and down.
What size? I guess I missed that. But what size sinker are you using there?
1/4 ounce.
1/4 ounce. Okay.
I run a 1/4 ounce all the time, and my preference on a fish, whether it be on timber or suspended, is to drop it right on his head. Hopefully, best case scenario, he's sitting still. I can pull up there and drop it. I'm way more accurate than that because
Yeah.
I'm shooting right out the straight. If I'm chasing them, of course I'm pitching, and I generally go through a fish or two. I'm always going to try to pull right up to that fish and catch him. If I start spooking fish, then I will start
Yep.
pitching quicker. Only time I pitch is when I can't pull up to a fish.
Yeah.
I run a 15 to 16 foot rod, so dropping straight down with a 15-foot rod, I can drop. If I hold it out just like that, I'm dropping 13 to 14 foot
Right.
in front of my trolling motor because of my setback. But in the same instance, using that long rod, I've got 30 foot of reach
Yep.
to
Yeah.
pitch, and I don't have to reel. Casting to them, that's really not my forte. You can reach them at 60 foot, but you see a lot of guys casting, reeling up, where as I'm trying to get, like I said, I've got 30 foot of reach
Yeah.
with the rod without, if they're 60 foot, you're going to beat me.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to have to run up on them and try to catch them before they run, Yeah. That's how I do it. I try to drop right on their head.
And I've been doing long poling really religious, I guess, for the last 3 or 4 months. And I have somebody typically new in the boat, and hopefully you guys listening that are new can maybe even do this, but I don't drop on a lot of fish. As far as once I spot one, I want my client to go ahead and have the bait in the water, and then I'm going to drive the boat to that fish.
Yeah.
Because typically what happens is I'll have a fish and I have him lined up and I'm easing to him and they'll sling that bait to him and that splash.
Yep.
Every time, if it's a splash, those fish are like little rockets. They're gone.
Yeah. And of
So I like
course,
driving it to them.
y'all are fishing shallower fish
Yeah.
too.
Well, no, these fish this winter really 12, 18 is day in bread butter,
Yeah.
and they can hear those splashes at 18
Yeah.
foot deep.
There's days I see that where we're at. Not always, and there is an art to pitching.
Yeah.
Laying it in there.
Even when they're not. So don't let that just.
Don't plow.
Yeah. Try to do it more like a feather it into the water, like I like to
Jig
pitch out and then
first.
kind of ease it into the water.
Oh, you're
I'm
nasty.
actually aiming that sinker,
Yeah.
because I'm going to pitch a little past him. I'm holding my rod tip up. As that sinker swings over that fish, let your rod tip down, and that jig will follow it
Yep.
to that fish.
Pendulum. Boom.
Yeah, but yeah, there is an art to pitching all that weight
Yeah.
in the water, because if you just chunk it out there like a rock, it's going to make a big splash.
Yeah, I found that, and talking basic guys, whenever I've got my jig out and I'm sitting it down and I'm driving it to the fish, and I try to match that jig brightness to match the fish. So once I got that fish kind of lined up and it's really bright, well, I know at that point, or if he moves it to the left, I'm not seeing it. If he moves it back to the right a little bit, all right, it's bright. I'm wanting to match that brightness to that jig to the brightness of the crappie on the screen. And believe me, that right there tells you, once you have that same intensity on your screen as far as the brightness, you're perfectly lined up.
I tell
in my
my
opinion.
people, bright is right.
Bright is right. I,
I
like
mean,
that.
Yeah.
They just, a lot of times if you see, if you turn your unit sideways where it's looking like a scope, the fish looks like it's to the right.
Yeah.
And when they drop down, they automatically want to take
Absolutely.
your pole.
When
or
it's dead, it's just away from
it's
them.
straight out.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's when I start coaching. I'm like, bright is right. Can you see your jig now? And they're like, no. I said, what did you do different? And they're like, well,
Moved it to the left.
I went to the right.
Yeah.
All right,
That's
move it back
typically
to the
right.
left, and you'll see it. But
Biggest tip I've got, like I said, brightness. I always get that fish as bright as I can get him. That's how I know I'm lined up on that fish and downwind of him.
Yep.
You can drive your jig to the fish. You can't drive the fish to your jig.
Yeah.
Keep the fish lid up. Move your jig to the fish.
That's right.
Because if you catch yourself looking at the jig, you may lose the fish and you turn back and it's gone.
Yeah.
You know.
Your natural instinct, and everybody that gets my boat, and I'm sure you guys are going to testify, just like TJ just kind of brought up, was on the right side. Once you're looking at that screen, your natural instinct is saying, all right, that fish is a little bit further to the right. I need to move my pole to the right. And there's no left and right on the screen.
No.
There's distance away.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
I've
caught myself doing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's
Still to
easy
this day, I catch myself.
because your brain is telling you, all right, that fish is further to the right. I need to move to the right.
Yep.
Yes.
It is a natural thing that I see every single day.
Yep.
Yeah.
Whenever I'm long poling suspended open water fish.
Yep. But it's so rewarding.
Yes. And pitches are free.
Yes.
If you pitch it out there and you're not lined up, especially on windy days and you're fighting it, pick it up and pitch it again till you land it over that fish. Keep the fish lit up.
Yep.
I think too, when we're talking about the basics things here, you know, my mindset is I'm going to get it lined up. I'm going to get it downwind of the fish before I can get my boat control right, being real stealthy, but also I think a lot of people when they get in their boat, and I jump in a lot of people's boats as well and kind of help them, is they have their trolling motor set on one speed.
Mm-hmm.
They might have it set on high, and all of a sudden they're hitting it, and then all of a sudden that fish stops and they blow right over the top of them. But if you get a fish, my thing would be dialed down, because I can't even wear tennis shoes now. I'm so crazy. But I want to dial down my trolling motor and ease into that fish.
Yes.
There's no rush.
Yeah.
No.
Especially pleasure fish.
Yep.
There's no rush.
And if a fish is sitting still, it's better to sneak up on him.
Make one good presentation.
Your first presentation is key.
You can make it or break it. Sometimes you'll get another chance. Sometimes you won't.
Yep.
I know it's like even me, if I have a client and we get up on a fish and I really feel like that fish saw the bait, it reacted, but it wouldn't commit, I'm not going to fish for that fish anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and leave him, because, I mean, I'm wanting to put, like Ty, we want to get some fish, and TJ,
Yep.
and even old Slab Nasty here. But, you know, I'm wanting to put fish in the boat. So if that fish is not going to be responsive, let's go ahead and move to the next one.
Yeah.
There's so many crappie in most impoundments.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, a fish is going to react to your bait the first or second time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Generally, if it's the second time, suppose you didn't show it to him right the
That's
first
it.
time. Usually, he's going to react to it the first time he sees it.
So I would, even going back to trolling motor settings, I would say go really slow, set your trolling motor adjustment, no matter what brand it is, on the lowest setting, and just try to ease up to that fish. Take your time and ease into it.
Yeah. You can't catch a fish that's under the boat on
Yeah.
forward-facing sonar.
Absolutely.
That's a big mistake people make.
Yeah.
They overrun fish.
Yeah.
And one thing that I see that is a huge mistake, and you know, in the last hour, me and Russell and Jeff and Jerry were doing a seminar, and I've been saying it now, good grief, since I first really met you back when nobody knew what was going on with what I was talking about.
Yeah.
When you start talking about presenting it on a fish correctly the first time, 99% of the fish that y'all see out there, guys, are looking at your boat.
Yeah.
They're
So
looking
if
at you.
They have stopped and they've turned and they're looking at you. And so if you do pitch past them, you're coming in at its tail.
Yeah.
But keep it above them.
Absolutely.
That's the key. Keep it above them.
Another thing that I've noticed this year is when I'm driving, because like I said, I usually got somebody sitting to my right side, and I'm driving them to that fish, you know, and their bait's already in the water. I really feel like if that bait's at the same level as that fish is, or below them, anywhere below them, I mean, even or below them, they feel it.
Yeah.
But if I'm a foot and a half, 2 foot above them, I can get behind them, let them hold that bait right there and drive that bait to them, and then drop
Drive
it down.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. It's the key to keep it above them.
Yeah. Until you
Far
get
enough
ready
to where
to.
you're not spooking them,
Yep.
because you know.
That's
like I said,
kind of,
if you make a bad pitch, pick it up.
yeah.
Yep.
I've caught myself trying to line back up with the fish and thinking I had it high enough. And as soon as I throw it back on the fish, I see my jig hit the fish and he's gone.
Yeah,
Especially on timber.
Yep.
You know.
they're not going to give you a whole, especially big fish. I mean, they're not going to give you a whole lot of chances to
No.
do it.
They-
They want it right.
They didn't get big for being stupid.
That's exactly
you know.
right. The dumb ones are gone. That's why I tell most
Yep.
people we're missing a lot of fish. Like, look, we got to go find some dumb fish
That's
because these are
right.
way too smart
That's
for us
right.
today.
That's me. I catch the dumb ones.
Yeah, I like the dumb ones.
Yeah.
Another thing that, and I'm talking about what I've seen over the last 3 or 4 months for really dialing into this technique, is setting a hook. I can see a fish bite it faster than most people can feel it.
Yes.
You know, if you're sitting there and you see a fish and he kicks at that 45-degree angle, and all of a sudden I see him do the little leap,
You got it.
he's on it.
Yep.
I bet
And
you
I'm
see that a lot.
Absolutely. I'm
Yeah.
like, set the hook, set the hook. And they're like, well, I didn't feel it. Well, that fish is coming up.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's coming up with that bait.
He took the weight off
He's
of it.
taking
Yep.
all the resistance. He's not going down. So if you see a fish, he kicks it up, or she kicks it up and jumps for that bait,
Yep.
set the hook. I tell everybody, hook sets are free.
Yes.
You got another
They're no
shot.
extra.
Yes.
If you do set the hook when he lunges, the bait's already gone from him. You know, if you miss him, so
Yeah.
be it. He's going to go back. He's going to settle back down. He may run 15 yards, but he's going to settle right back down where he was, and you got another opportunity to drop on him. If you let that fish hold it in his mouth, and then he spits it, then you set the hook. He's not going to bite
Game
that
over.
second time. You're done.
He's already got a taste of it. He didn't like it.
This is like playing baseball. If you get the perfect pitch, what are you supposed to do in baseball? You're supposed to swing
That's
for it.
right.
Yes.
It's the same thing with these fish to me is if they're coming up and they're showing you they're attacking it,
Yep.
Don't strike out looking.
don't strike it out. That was a perfect pitch, buddy.
Yep.
Don't strike out looking.
That's
Go down
right.
swinging.
Yeah.
You know.
I'd much rather strike out swinging than
Oh,
sit
yeah.
there looking at them.
Yes. Yes.
I will say to the people that are going to fish Mississippi this spring, we were kind of talking about it, you know, keeping the baits above them. You're going to be chasing running fish.
Yeah.
It's the way it is there. I mean,
And from what I've heard, they run.
they run.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're getting out of Dodge.
Like how fast? On your trolling motor.
Usually, if they're not real spooked, they're just trying to get away from you, it's about a mile an hour. If they're trying to get away from you, you're running a mile and a half to 175, sometimes 2.
And people that's never paid attention to that, that's fast.
Yeah,
When
that's
you're
fast.
trying to stay on a fish
That's it.
and catch him.
And when they're running, they're looking away from
Yes.
you. But the rest of the time, they're looking. When they stop, they normally stop and turn around
Yep.
and look at you. It's almost like, all right, I'm tired of you chasing
Yep.
me.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
turn around and fight you.
Yeah.
Coming back to that, those fish are going to be shallow and they're going to be running. So, like you said earlier, when you click your trolling or your transducer up one click, you get to see that top of that water column. So a lot of times your jig won't be in the water that deep, and if that's above him, you know, he's right here, and if you come in too low behind that fish, you don't have much room for air. That's
Right.
not a lot. So a lot of times I'll have them keep the jig skipping on top of the water until I know that we're usually about 10 foot. If they're running hard, that's where I can drop the jig down and keep it over their heads. And then as they're running, drop down. And it don't matter if you're way in front of him, because then I can slow the boat down a little bit. And it's going to, when that bait settles in front of him, it's almost instant. It's like they're run. And if they see it, they posture and stop. It's on right there. But that's if you come in with your bait too low, he's
That's
gone.
over.
You're done.
I'd much rather you come in too high than
Yeah.
too low.
Yeah.
Hey, there's times where we've been out there and I'm like, I can't see your bait. He's so shallow, I can't see your bait. And he's like, man, I can't see it either. And we look up and the bait's out of the water.
Yeah.
By about that far.
Probably to the right too.
And you made a great point on chasing fish, no matter if they're going fast or slow. If you drop it right on him and he's running, you're behind
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
You've got to be in. You got to lead him like a dove.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. If you drop it on him, time he gets to him, he's out there and you're picking it back
Yep.
up and chasing him.
A fish that's running away from you is 100% better than one running to you. You got all
Yeah.
the opportunities
Oh,
in the
yeah.
world to get in front of a running one. And if you, like I said, if you can lay that jig in front of him, he's going to eat it, even if he don't want it, you know.
Yeah.
I know last week I had a trip and we wind up, I found a pretty good fish, open water, and we wind up doing like 3 circles, just following this fish. And I feel like these fish are starting to feel this frequency
Yeah.
or what have you.
I'm a firm
And-
believer they do.
Yeah. So that fish was running from us, and finally got the right presentation in front of him, and he caught it. And the guy was like, "I would have never thought we would have caught that fish." And I was like, "If we actually present it right and stay on him, I think they get fed up with it.
Yeah.
They'll get to the point that they're like, all right, I'm gonna kill this little minnow that's been irritating me. It's
Yep.
kind of like
Yeah.
a gnat buzzing around our head. We're gonna eventually keep trying to slap it to
right.
kill it." And that's some of the bites that you'll see on these open water fish is an aggravation bite.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I've had fish I've dropped on probably 20 times before I got them to bite.
Yep.
But it was a good time. A lot of times I'll drop on 2 or 3 times and I just go on. But if it's a good fish,
Yeah.
I'll keep chasing him as long as I can keep chasing him until you can't keep up with him.
I'm gonna camp out on him.
Yeah, you know, because unless he goes to the bottom and
Yeah.
you lose him, if he stays up, try to stay on him.
Yeah.
I mean, if you spook him, he may shoot up there and you wouldn't catch up to him with a big motor. But,
You know, a lot of times they're just kind of like, oh, I'm gonna just kind of get out of this thing's way, and they'll just kind of
Exactly.
meander
Yeah.
away or whatever. And people keep asking, well, why we, we're moving to the left, and also we're moving back to the right. And I'm like, I very rarely ever see a swimming fish move in a straight line.
Right.
Yeah.
You'll see them kind of veer to the right for a little ways, and then
Yep.
all of a sudden they're going to kick it back to, and they might go in 3 circles, just
Yep.
like that one did last week on me. They
And-
went in 3 circles.
And Murphy's Law, when they move, it's right when you pitch.
Yep.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
You keep
Keep on
chasing
going.
them.
I think guys listening and watching what have you, if you can take some of these keys right here, you will put more fish in
Oh,
the boat.
yeah.
Guaranteed.
Yep.
Guaranteed. This is
is hard
time on the
learned.
water.
Yeah.
This is time on the water this is eliminating mistakes. We've made a ton of.
A lot.
I'm one of those guys. I learn by mistake. I can tell you a million ways not to do something
Yep.
because I've done them.
Yep.
It's not because I don't always have a teacher. I'm hard-headed. I want to learn about myself. Be it my jigs, whatever. I can tell you how not to make one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can tell you how to not catch a fish.
Yep.
Now, I may not be able to put you on fish every day. That's why I'm not a guide. I can tell you how to not catch them.
Since we're talking about the basics, a little bit of fish identification is going to go a long way.
Yeah.
A lot of times, everybody knows that those crappie pretty much sit still when you first initially see them.
See 'em.
As you get closer, obviously, they kind of meander away. But if I see 6 fish swimming in zigzags, that's white bass for me. 90% of the time, it's white bass.
It ain't
We don't have
crappie.
a whole lot of largemouth in Grenada, so I mean those are white bass. But you see one that's absolutely just stoned, it's probably going to be a crappie.
Even if the shape's not
Yeah,
exactly right.
exactly. Because he could be turned, if he's facing you or facing away from you, it's perfect. He looks like a crappie. But if he's facing sideways in that water column, it don't look like a crappie. That's not what you're seeing.
That's
But
where
it
your
is
football's
still.
come
Yeah,
from.
but it is sitting still, so that gives you enough right there. But when that fish runs and say you can see the bottom, say you're in 12 foot of water, and you got your unit set on 13, your crappie runs away and they dive. When they hit the bottom, people are like, well, he's gone. If you stay on that fish, keep your trolling motor pretty straight, kind of feather it, you'll see him in about 2 seconds. He'll hit that bottom and he'll come straight back up. And he's still running away, but he's coming back up to the surface. And a lot of time, he's not going to bite it when he's going down to the bottom. He's not interested. But if you can get a bait on him as he's coming back up to the surface where you first saw him, he's going to bite it.
Yeah,
9 times out of 10 at least, That's the time you want to, I tell him, I'm like, just wait. And got our bait in the water. And we're driving, we're following him. I'm like, don't put it on him yet. He's going down. He hits the bottom. He comes back up, sees our bait. He bites it.
I think of this technique, and it is a technique that takes a while to get efficient at. And I think that people believe they can put a live scope on their boat and they're just going to go out there and smoke them.
Don't work
And
that
it's
way.
all these little keys that we're throwing out today that will speed up your process.
Yep.
That's what we're saying.
I've been fishing since I was old enough to walk. Crappie fishing. Started out on the bank. When I got live scope, I wanted to throw it in the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
I couldn't catch a fish.
Absolutely.
I hated it. Now I love it.
Yep.
It doesn't make me a better fisherman. It makes me a more efficient fisherman. I catch less fish now than I did before it because I skip all the fish
Yeah.
I don't want to catch.
Some
Very
of
good
our
point.
best guiding days were where we caught 70 and kept 20.
Yeah.
You know, spider rigging.
Yeah.
Everybody loves that, man. Everybody likes to catch numbers.
Yeah. See, I'm the oddball.
Yeah.
I'm just chasing big ones.
That's
you
Just
know?
right.
looking for slab nasty.
You know, I'm not a guide.
Yeah.
So yes, if I book a trip, come down to TJ, I want to catch 23-pound fish.
We can do it.
And
Might take us 3 weeks.
Yeah, we can do it, though.
Yeah.
you know, I don't do good under that pressure like that. My hat's off to you guys that are guides that can do that because time on the water.
Oh, it's fun.
Those are
It's
my favorite
priceless.
trips, actually. When somebody calls
yeah.
me and they're like, "Man, I don't want to keep a fish. I don't want little ones." I'm like, "Well, I mean, what are you okay with catching 2 fish all day?" And I mean, that goes a long way. And they're like, 2? I'm like, well,
Maybe.
I mean,
Yes.
that's possible, but we're going to chase 3-pounders. That's the ones we're going to go after.
And that's something a lot of people don't, they see my post on Facebook of these big monster fish. I might have fished 12 hours that day and caught 4 fish.
Yep.
Sometimes 2. They think I caught 100 of those
Yeah.
that size. No, I don't catch 100 of those a day.
Nope.
I'm strictly searching for, because that's what I like to catch.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm on a meat run, I'm going to go to a different lake. I'm dropping on every fish
That's
I
right.
catch. Yes, you can do that, but use it as a tool that suits you.
Todd, you got anything on that, Dan?
Good.
Man, I've enjoyed it, and I want you guys that are listening that's got some of these basics down. If we've missed something, put them in the comments.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hey, this is what we're trying to do here is help this sport and help these guys get better fishermen. We've all got things to learn. So if you've got a basic suggestion for somebody starting out, comment it.
Or even if you think we're wrong,
Yeah.
Yes.
let us know.
Yes. I love constructive criticism.
If you want to know why Todd wears sunglasses, I get that question quite a bit.
Yes.
Todd, why do you wear sunglasses all the time?
Well, I just put them on for this because you tell me that everybody's been saying that.
So, I mean, you just did it to please the public.
That's right.
I got you. That's cool.
You said you saw a picture of me floating around
I did.
yesterday. A guy came up to me yesterday and said, "Dude, you're not wearing sunglasses. I got to take a picture with you without sunglasses." I said, "All right." He said, "Why aren't you wearing them?" And I said, "Because these lights aren't bothering my eyes today. It was dark outside yesterday. It was cloudy. I didn't need them."
That's right.
And I've got one tip, if I could give it to somebody, and this is kind of a last ditch effort.
Uh-oh.
On a fish sitting on, suspended on timber. Let's say we're in 20 foot of water. Fish suspended 30 foot deep on that timber. You pull up to him. You've thrown everything at the book at him. He doesn't acknowledge it. He doesn't even act like you're there, and you know it's a fish.
That's a female crappie.
Drop it on his head, spook him.
Yep.
I've heard
9
that.
out of 10 times, he will turn around and bite it as soon as he sees it when you drop it back on. You'll get
Yep.
the reaction. I think they're asleep.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think they're asleep.
They'll do it suspended, too.
Yeah.
I mean, out there in the middle of nowhere, if you hit
they're
them
the
and
top
get them
dog.
to run, yeah.
Do not try that first.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Last ditch.
If you cannot get them to react, and we all know by the fluttering we see,
Yep.
they see. If you can't get that, and you've stuck your fishing pole down there and swished the water and everything, drop it on their
That's
head.
kind of a good point about the flutter, and some people may not know about that.
That we all look for that.
Yeah.
When I pitch, even if that fish is 10 foot down and I pitch it at 5 and I see him flutter, he's seen it.
Yeah.
I'm getting ready to.
Yep.
I'm getting ready.
Yep.
He sees it. You're gonna make it or break it in that next 5 foot.
Yeah.
And another thing is, a lot of lakes out there are going to be different. For some of y'all that are
yeah.
listening, like when TJ was talking about at Grenada chasing those fish, when he said they'll run, go to the bottom, second or two, come back up and keep going. At Eufaula, we'll purposely, if we get a fish that's just suspended out there, not moving, not doing anything, I'll take a rod tip, poke him, and he will instantly spook and run 30, 40 feet, and he'll go to the bottom. And if I can keep him to where I kind of know
Yeah.
I can just barely make him out, he'll stay on bottom. If you drop a jig on him on my lake, he'll smoke it.
That's funny how
done
2
pissed
different
him
lakes
off.
are different like
yeah,
that.
but he will never come back up from bottom.
Yeah.
So
You made him mad.
So listen to everything we're saying, but then also you're going to have to fine tune it
things.
a little
Try
bit
things.
for your
Yes,
lake.
yeah. Sometimes you need to spook them.
But also, we're a rocky bottom.
Yeah.
And so when that fish goes to the bottom on Eufaula, he's wedged in between two rocks. He's kind of in some cover where you're in mud.
You got him
right.
backed in a corner.
And so maybe in that mud, they go down there and they're like, nope, that's cold. That's cold.
Yeah.
You know, that cold mud, our rocks actually absorb a lot of sunlight and they're warm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, all the time we get people ask, how can we help the Crappie Connection? And there's one simple way that if you haven't done it yet is by hitting that subscribe button. It takes literally a second to do. So make sure you subscribe, comment, guys. Like we said, hey, tell us what we're doing wrong. Definitely want to thank each one of you guys today.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Keep trying it.
Yeah.
But until next time, you got Brad Chappell here.
Todd Huckabee.
Slab Nasty.
Slab
TJ
Nasty.
Shands.
All right.
Wait, what was the nickname?
Ginger Jesus.
There you go.
All right. Holla.
About a mile from the big muddy river, a place I'll always remember. Cabin on the lake and a fishing pole. Forever here I'll rest my soul. I can feel my worries drift away.